So, okay. So like let's talk about when you started teaching because I remember when you did I even remember when you started teaching like helping you like prep that classroom. I remember doing that. So like what was it like your first couple years being a teacher? Like was it what you expected? Or was it different? How so?
Definitely wasn't what I expected. I learned that college doesn't prepare you to be a teacher. So, like basic stuff that you need to survive in the classroom, it doesn't teach you those things. You learn a lot of pediology stuff then, but you don't really learn like practical stuff. Like, for me, a kid was throwing up, and I'm like, go to the bathroom. And I learned, no, don't tell that kid to go to the bathroom, bring him a trash can. Because if you tell him to go to the bathroom, you got vomit dripping all across the, entire classroom, and now everybody got to smell it.
Right.
So little things like that, they don't talk about that in school, but they teach you about content and context and all this stuff and academic vocabulary. But like to actually literally deal with, children, it's like, no, none of that's taught at all.
Yeah. And do y'all get like classroom experience when you go through school or no, it's just like it's all books.
So I did when I went to UMSL, because that's where I did my undergrad at. And we did a semester where we just observed a teacher. And then the next entire like semester, you actually went in and you did your student teaching. So I did get like a year of time in the classroom, but only half of the time was teaching.
Okay.
But
Okay,
again,
cool.
it doesn't teach you what you really need because that's not your classroom.
Right. It's just it's almost like so is it getting like thrown to the wolves once you get out of college?
Yeah, you are. You're thrown into the wolves. You just got to make your own way. And that's why a lot of teachers leave after 5 years, because that's when you're going to determine if this is really for you or if it's not. So I always tell like the new teachers, if you can make it through the first 5 years and you still here, then you might have what it takes to be a teacher.
Okay. Okay. So really teaching has to be a calling.
Right. It's not something you can just walk in and say, I want to do it. However, in certain states, like anybody can be a teacher. And that's like a whole nother topic, at a later time. But
Yeah.
the state of Florida, for example, if you are a retired veteran or you were in the military, you can go in and be a teacher now, which they have no training. And I'm not knocking it, but it's certain things I feel like you need to know before you get up in front of somebody's child.
Well, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I could see what you mean. Like, I can, because one, like, as a person who, like, not only are you a teacher, you're also an administrator. So I'm sure there's like nuances when it comes to that you know about what it takes to be a good educator or not. And I guess from like an outsider's perspective, it's just like, oh, yeah, anybody can be a teacher, but like, no, that's not necessarily true. Like, yeah.
Right. And then as a parent as well, I'm looking at it like I don't want just anybody in front of my child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think that the vetting process for like how do you feel about the vetting process for um who gets to work in schools and not? Is there one?
I don't really think there is one.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh. I've never thought about that before. Because when you think about some professions where you have to do like, like extensive, like so if you want to be like a police officer or something, like, like it's extensive like background checks and stuff like that, psychologists, all those types of things. But you think like when you have teachers, like teachers are working with kids on an intimate one-on-one setting on a daily basis.
I mean, they do have to do a background check technically. Like you get your fingerprints done and they run
Mm,
it through the, state database and then they go through a national database. But I know there are people who are in the industry that have backgrounds and they still work in schools.
hmm.
So, I guess it depends on the background because it's not like, teachers aren't humans. Like there are teachers who have been arrested. I'm sure there's teachers who have been drinking and driving and gotten a DUI. I don't know. But I'm sure there are some, and you can't, tell them they can't teach anymore because they're human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think ugh, like nuance has been like my favorite word this year, because I think that especially in this climate now, it's something that people have thrown have thrown to the wolves, and it's just like life requires a lot of nuance and analyzing things from a case by case basis. Like we talk about things in general terms all the time, and we're ready to put somebody's feet to the fire, but in reality there's so much that happens beyond the scenes and the scope. Like we don't have no room to judge anybody, but it's just like some of the questions that we have, that I think that's what's more important, is just like looking at the whole of who we are putting in front of children um on a daily basis, and it's a lot of ways that we can approach it. So it's just like, yeah, I can see why it's just like, okay, like maybe you don't need a whole, like, you know what I'm saying, like master's or something to be like a kindergarten teacher, but at the same time, like what experience do you need? Are we asking the right things? And like if we aren't putting that, you know, technical preparation behind somebody, what other things need to go with that in
Mhm.
order to fill that gap? So
Right.
that's that's something interesting to think about. I never even knew that before, so thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times students will find the information before the, actual school finds it, because the kids will go Google the teacher's name and then they'll pull up like the arrest records and stuff like that. So a lot of times they're more hip than the administrators and
That's
the people
very true.
and the people doing the hiring. So a lot of times you kind of learn as you go, and you start looking up stuff a little bit quicker before the kids get to it.
I know that's right. I know that's right too. And this is like so unrelated, but it's funny because that's kind of like how life works. I remember when I was working at that retail store, we had a boss, and like he was a character, but he wasn't there that long. And like everybody knows it now. It's just like he was on Dr. Phil and he was in some mess. Like he was in some mess. And it's just like, hold on, wait, like what? Like it's just like, yeah, people have some whole other lives going on, like that you won't even know about, and a quick Google search will tell you a lot.
Yes, it will. But
All
it's
right.
okay because, like, as a child, I remember seeing one of my teachers out in public, and I was like, oh my God, like, that's Miss So and so, and she's wearing a mini skirt. And it's like, wait, but it's a teacher. She's a human. Like, yeah, she can wear a mini skirt, but we're used to seeing her wearing like long clothes in the building.
Yeah.
And then when I was a teacher, I had that happen to me before. I had like flip flops on, a skirt, and a tank top, and I ran into a kid, and the kid was like, oh my God, there's Miss Kelly. She looks normal. And it's like, well, this is what our kids see us as. Like, we don't look normal in the classroom. What do we look like? So
What's that like now, being on the other side of that?
now I kind of just don't go out in the area where I work in. So then you avoid it altogether.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough.